Hello, my name is Anthony Perrier, and I've been making videos on YouTube for a few years now, mostly car videos actually, almost exclusively, because I'm truly passionate about cars. And a few years ago, I was finally able to buy my dream car, a Porsche 944. I kept it for a few years, and after a while I just couldn't stand looking at it anymore. I couldn't stand it so much that I started looking for excuses. I started looking for ideas, simply to get rid of it. Not because it was a bad car, but just because I wanted to see something else. I had gotten a bit bored with it. I'm sure that among you, quite a few have already experienced this feeling. You're working on a project and then, at some point, well, the project just doesn't make sense in your mind anymore. I took advantage of that and that's it. It was the first time I'd ever gotten rid of a car simply because I wanted it gone. And that's how I came across this car. A Ford Mustang GT from 2005 powered by a 4.6-liter V8, so 5th generation S197 generation. I was never interested in these cars before. And then this one, I saw it and I saw it again and I kept seeing it. And then at some point I said to myself, damn, it's really so cool, so I bought it. So, just for the record, I bought this car for almost 10,000 euros below the market price, which I estimate at 25,000 euros for a 5th generation Mustang GT automatic in good condition, and that doesn't have like 4 billion kilometers on it, so yeah, good deal. Except that the good deal quickly turned into a less good deal. Not to say it was a bad deal, but definitely a much less good deal. When I say that, it means that the car, yeah, it was actually really prone to rust. A lot, actually. In fact, we didn't really know that. We suspected issues with the car, which is why I paid little for it, but I didn't realize the problems were so extensive. So I ended up spending thousands of euros on this car to get it back in shape, especially with the rust, because I had to find new floor panels, cut them, weld them. That was a nightmare. It's not my job. It was absolutely not worth doing. And then I also had to replace all the running gear. Everything that could be changed on the chassis was replaced, whether it was on video or after the video. A lot of things were done on the car. And then there were also the 4 shock absorbers that were shot. So a big thank you to RWP, who provided me with 4 beautiful coilovers that we actually installed on this car. That's why that it looks so good on these beautiful Shelby GT 500 wheels with the new tires I also bought. So yeah, basically I put a lot of time and money into this car. Except, well, I got bored of it. You see the pattern repeating here? Yeah, so basically, this car, with all the work I did, it kind of put me off and I don't really want to have it at my place anymore because it'll give me money for the rest of the projects. And then, well, if I can afford it, I'll keep it. Because despite all the work I've done, despite all that, it's still a really endearing car with a unique look. I love this car. But at some point, maybe I'll have to say goodbye to it anyway. That's what I wanted to tell you in this video. That, and the fact that the 206 RC is gone too. What? The 206 RC is gone? We get the Mustang though, since it surprised us to see you in one, Anthony. But the 206 RC, you said you wouldn't sell it. Yes, I did say that. But what's the saying? Only fools never change their minds. I'm not a fool. I'm just very impulsive. But don't worry, I'm getting help for that. It's not a problem. Well, however, I have to admit something to you. Yes, that's for sure. Honestly, that was pretty much mandatory. Yeah, I've already been thinking about what comes after 505 for 2 years now. I mean, yeah, well, the project is taking a bit longer than expected. But really, it's already been 2 years since I bought something, and I wanted this project to be really special, to really be unique. No, let's not kid ourselves. I didn't buy that either, no. However, in December 2024, I drove 20 hours to Brittany and I bought this.
Oh, what's that?
Hey, what are you doing here?
What, it's already 5:44? Well, what's that shirt you're wearing? Ford, take this.
Man, damn! Oh, unbelievable! Man, Man, this is insane.
It's crazy.
So I love you as much as I hate you.
Yeah.
Why are there two third-generation Camaros? Because Clayton, right here, had a third-generation Camaro himself.
Yeah.
With the T-top.
Yeah, honestly, it was awesome.
After I started hanging out with Vartan, I ended up with 12 Mercedes in my garage. So you get the idea. I'm very easily influenced, but it's okay because I surround myself with the right people, I think.
Yeah, it's okay. It could be worse.
Honestly, it's fine. So basically, the story of these two Camaros is pretty simple. Impulse decision, add-on Le Bon Coin, BE license, flatbed tow truck, Brittany. Clayton came with me. It was an awesome road trip.
Yeah, honestly.
We barely slept. I was really tired. I damaged my garage. Do you remember that, man?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you need to put the clip in.
Clip. I'm going to bed, I'm tired. But good memories. So anyway, as you notice, these are third generation Camaros. So obviously, if you know how to count, before that there were
1,
3,
2, I think.
2 generations. So here we go. I'm going to tell you the story of the Camaro. But make sure you stay until the end. Because, well, after that, I'll tell you about it and especially what we're going to do with it. Because yes, that's the most interesting part. Because yes, the beginning of the Camaro's story actually starts in 1964. Because in 64, Ford decided to introduce the Mustang that everyone knows. And by the way, if you don't know the Mustang, I'll put the link just at the top right of the video. I go over a bit of the history of the Mustang and my Mustang. And basically that's it. Ford unveils the Mustang, and for General Motors, the idea really stinks. It's a small, cheap car based on a Ford Falcon, aimed at young people with a sporty look. However, that's as far as it goes. They expect to sell around 100,000 units annually. They think, if needed, we can add some competition with the Corvair, which will attract young people. Very good.
Actually, man, my grandmother had a Corvair. It stank like crazy. And my dad told me he used to fall asleep from the carbon monoxide leaks because of the rear engine. It really wasn't great, you know.
Oh yeah, so basically the whole competition thing didn't work out so well. And in 65, the Mustang sold. It actually sold really well. We're talking about 22,000 units in the first few days after it was released, when the car was announced at the Detroit Auto Show. And we're talking about 100,000 sales in 4 months. I don't know if you realize, we're in 65 and the car sold, but it's just crazy. So now GM is thinking, maybe we missed something. We're going to try to catch up. In the spring of 65, there's panic at General Motors. Ford just finished the year with 418,000 sales, something like that, of the Mustang. It's insane. And now they're thinking, well, maybe the Corvair wasn't the idea of the century. We're going to have to respond quickly with a real platform, something that can really compete with the Mustang. They hate to admit it, but the Mustang, their rival, is a good car, so they dig a bit. Still, they don't want General Motors involved in anything they can't control. So it won't be an Oldsmobile platform, it won't be a Buick platform, it'll be a Chevrolet platform. And now, they think that the Chevrolet Nova could be a good starting platform. Small car, simple to build, that'll be the base for the Camaro. Yeah, and actually the Corvair, that won't work at all, since we have the lawyer Ralph Nader, who just published a book about the Corvair saying it was probably the most dangerous car in the world. It rolls over, well, without even being asked actually, so no, the Corvair, we forget about it. It's already the summer of 1965 and Chevrolet absolutely wants to release a car for the 1967 model year. So, well, they focus a lot and then they work on the XP 836 concept, also called Panther. Prototypes continue to appear, with various designs and iterations, some more successful than others. A few resemble a Corvette, and so on. And they come up with a pretty cool design, with 2 round headlights in front, but Pete Estes is still not at all keen on the name Panther. So, in 1966, the entire management of General Motors invites 200 journalists from all over the United States to a conference called SEPAW, S-E-P-A-W, which stands for Society
for Elimination of Panthers from the Automotive World.
Yeah, something like that. And so, at one point we're on stage and there are people holding signs with the letter C-A-M-A-R, and then Pete Estes comes in with the letter O. It will be a Camaro. When the name is announced, there's an awkward silence and real discomfort. No one understands. And so he tries to justify it a little by saying that he wanted a model that starts with the letter C, because there are a lot of Chevrolets and blah 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 that start with the letter C. And then it sounds like camarade in French. He wanted a friendly car. And so a journalist asks,
what is a Camaro?
And they answer, it's a little creature that eats Mustangs. In September 66, the first Camaros hit dealerships with either a small 6-cylinder or a V8 engine, similar to the Mustang. Up to that point, everything was fine. However, while the Mustang topped out at a 4.7-liter V8 with 225 horsepower, Chevrolet comes straight in, right from the start, with the SS version equipped with a
big 6.5-liter V8, 325 horsepower, which was crazy for the time because nothing else had that kind of power.
That's 100 more horsepower than the Mustang. Also, we can mention the presence, even at that time, of the Z28 version, which is actually a race-prepped version used to homologate the Camaro for Trans Am competition. We don't have the 6.5-liter for this one, so it will remain somewhat overshadowed by the SS, as it's limited to a 4.9-liter small block. And then, the Camaro also exists in a convertible version, but that one, you never really hear much about it. It's still a lot less interesting, quote-unquote, than the good old coupe. And at the end of 1967, the numbers came in. Believe it or not, Chevrolet sold no less than 220,000 Camaros. So that's great, but it's still half as many as the Mustang, which had already taken quite a lead. And here's a funny little anecdote. The Z28s I mentioned earlier only found 602 buyers out of the 220,000 Camaros sold. So yes, a first-generation Z28 Camaro is very rare, and so we'll have to wait until 1969 for the Camaro to be restyled. And now, we're getting to a bit of the pinnacle of the Camaro. It's the one everyone has in mind, the restyled 69 Camaro SS. Despite all that, despite all those years, all those units sold, we're talking about 700,000 units sold for the first generation of Camaro, but it still didn't dethrone the Mustang. But that's okay, it's still a victory, because you could say they still managed to break Ford's monopoly, which until then was selling pony cars all by itself. That's a victory in itself. In 1970, the second generation of Camaro arrived, and Bill Mitchell, the vice president of General Motors, himself owns a Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta Lusso, which he loves. And he loves it so much that he asked the engineers and designers to put lines inspired by this Ferrari on the second generation of Camaro. Said like that, it's very strange, but it gives us this: just incredible, beautiful, very sleek lines, frameless doors, and a very long hood. And honestly, I think it's extremely well done, this first version of the second generation Camaro. Because later, yes, there was a facelift, I'll come back to that later. It's also the first of its line with the Targa, or T-top roof, like we mentioned with Clayton. It's cool because it's like a convertible, but not exactly. You get the benefits without drawbacks, which is great, and I think it was a very good choice. Once it was announced and released at dealerships, they were serious about it. In the Camaro, you can find one of the most highly tuned engines of the era. It's just the Corvette engine, which still makes 360 horsepower. I don't know what you think, Clay, but for me, it's kind of the golden age of muscle cars. Like, it doesn't get any better than this.
Let's say it's the golden age before the big smog era drop-off.
By the way, here I'm talking about a 5.7-liter V8 that makes 360 horsepower today. A Hemi V8, still 5.7 liters, still naturally aspirated, barely makes 400 horsepower. So, the difference is phenomenal. Sure, we didn't have the same injection systems and especially pollution control systems, but 360 horsepower in 1970, personally, I wouldn't want to get in that. You know, no assistance, no ABS, nothing at all, you know. You die like a man. But yeah, the emission standards came much faster than we expected. The compression ratios are much lower. The gasoline is unleaded. So by 71, the Z28 drops from 360 to barely 245 horsepower. Yeah, Thierry, from one year to the next, with the same car and engine, you lose 100 horsepower.
I think Johnny is the most appropriate.
Johnny, yeah. I don't think there were many, Thierry.
I don't think there are any at all.
No. And in 75, the catalytic converter comes in, which means that on the same car, with the same engine, you go from 360 horsepower in 70 to 145 horsepower. 360 horsepower, 145 horsepower, in 5 years. Johnny is not happy at all. So personally, for the same price, completely crazy, I'm gonna buy the car used. 145 horsepower, a Corvette V8. And it turns out that Chevrolet was so ashamed of having such low power that they removed the Z28 and the SS from the catalog. So basically, the Camaro is taking a new direction. We're going from a sporty and fun muscle car to a cruiser that's made to go from point A to point B with a nice look. And the biggest change in this second generation of Camaro happens in 74. The car gets a facelift. On top of the emission standards, there are new crash standards. The car has big bumpers and all that. So not only does it become boring, it also becomes ugly. Is that right?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's not crazy, right? And right after that, of course, we get to the first big oil shock in the United States. But well, despite all these regulations, these strikes, and these kind of crappy economic choices, but well, they didn't really have a choice, the Camaro still beat the Mustang in terms of sales. Because with the second generation of the Mustang, which we already talked about in the Mustang video, Ford made even more extreme choices, which made the Mustang even more boring than the Camaro, which was already getting pretty boring compared to the golden age of muscle cars. So yes, in '82, the second generation of Camaro ended with more than 2 million units sold, which is just huge. But they're still boring cars. It's still not. And of course, right after the second generation, we get to the third generation.
Third gen.
And honestly, I think it's very well done. So, we're in 1982, and with this new year comes a whole bunch of new technologies, new engines, and so on. First of all, they ditched the Nova chassis, which was too old and outdated, and switched to a unibody. This is the first Camaro to have a real unibody chassis. This makes the car much lighter. We're talking about a difference of 220 kilos compared to the second generation Camaro. And above all, the car is much sleeker, much more aerodynamic, and yes, the 80s are the era of technology.
And of cocaine.
And of cocaine.
And debauchery. It really shows in the design, honestly.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, the car reeks of cocaine. So, this generation of Camaro is praised by the press for its handling, its futuristic design, and above all, the weight reduction is absolutely insane. By the way, the Camaro Z28, so, well, exactly this one, was named Motor Trend Car of the Year in 1982. They say it has the best handling ever seen on an American car. Now, I've never driven one, but in my opinion, it's not that amazing.
It's not complicated. It's not hard to do better than that.
And in terms of aerodynamics, we're looking at a drag coefficient of 0.37, which is really not bad for the time, especially in a country where all the cars are boxy, like bricks.
You can see it here. Look, it's a fighter jet.
It definitely looks like a fighter jet. And when you lean into the car, I'll show you these little shots, it really looks like a fighter jet. The cockpit is turned toward the driver, it's really futuristic, and it's just like a fighter jet. Well, on the other hand, if there's one area where the third generation Camaro is really going to get shot down, it's with the engines, especially on the first version, the cheapest one. Yes, it's powered by the Iron
Duke.
And despite that very stylish, very American name, it's a 4-cylinder, 2.5 liter with 95 horsepower that does 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 20 seconds. What? Yeah.
No, but it's good. It's good. It's economical.
In a Camaro!
It's economical, but still uses 20 liters per 100 kilometers.
I mean, the car looks like a fighter jet, but it struggles to reach 100 kilometers per hour.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
It's a nightmare. Even the Z28 behind us with a 5-liter V8 only makes about 185 horsepower.
Yeah, something like that.
So the journalists are pretty shocked because once again, I know I'm stuck on this, but 10 years earlier, the Camaro had 360 horsepower. It wanted to kill you. Now it struggles to reach 100 kilometers per hour. Well, obviously it's the 80s. Manufacturers are making innovations. We saw it in my last video about the Mercedes W124. It happened at the same time. The Cagetronic sucks. And well, guess what? Chevrolet does exactly the same thing on the Camaro on the 5-liter V8 with the injection system they call Crossfire. But the injection system is so bad and unreliable that the mechanics working on it at the time called it the ceasefire, as in ceasefire.
Anthony, being deeply disturbed by the Mercedes mechanical injection, forgot to read his lines. The Crossfire injection on the Camaros is actually an electronic injection system that has absolutely nothing to do with the Cagetronic. But it was still crap.
Luckily, in 1983, Chevrolet got rid of the bad 4-cylinder engine. So, we're left with a small, somewhat timid V6 with 103 horsepower, the 5-liter carbureted V8 with 145 horsepower, and the Crossfire with 165 horsepower. And we had to wait until 1985 for the third generation Camaro to really shine thanks to the IROC.
International Race of Champions, baby.
Which before used to have drivers compete in 911 RSRs.
And now, that's over. Now we want this. We want America, we want fighter jets on the track, we don't want those refined little Germans anymore. This is muscle, that's what we want.
Oh! So, of course, because of marketing, Chevrolet brings out the IROC Z as a tribute to racing and, above all, well, to sell a bit more. But be careful, they're not doing things halfway. It becomes a real sports car. We have suspensions reworked by Bilstein. We have big anti-roll bars. We have 16-inch aluminum wheels, for the first time ever fitted on a Chevrolet, even with low-profile tires. No, it's a real evolution of the Z28. We finally have the 5-liter and the 5.7-liter offered with a real TPI injection, which allows the power to go up to 230 horsepower. It's starting to get a bit nicer again. Alright then, from 86 to 92, the third generation of Camaro kept evolving little by little, especially with a pretty cool version, the 1LE, which basically means track. That's when it gets completely crazy. They remove all the options that are useless. They boost the engine slightly and our V8 reaches
230 horsepower.
As a result, the Z28 was completely replaced by the IROC Z, especially the 1LE. And that's why it became the most legendary, the most sought-after third-generation Camaro, despite what you might think, you poor four-cylinder fans. No, I'm joking, there aren't any four-cylinder fans for the third-generation Mustang. Wait, I meant Camaro. Sorry, that's redundant. And in the last 2 years of production, the Camaro V6 goes from 2.8 liters to 3.1, I think. That increases the torque a little, the power a little. It's nice, it makes for a cheap, easy-going cruiser. And that's how the story of the third-generation Camaro ends. It sold over 1.5 million units, making it the best-selling Camaro to date. And honestly, that makes perfect sense.
What's crazy, Anthony, is that you're not following anything at all. The second-generation Camaro sold much more than the third generation, as you already mentioned. We're still talking about a 500,000 unit difference. Focus.
So at that point, we think, that's it. Chevrolet and General Motors are on a roll. They've figured out how to make it sell. So, the fourth generation, it's definitely gonna be a damn banger. I'm not so sure.
No, honestly, I actually like the fourth generation. Visually, it's wild.
I like it too. Actually, yeah, now we're getting into the 90s.
Cocaine is over.
We want cars.
Futuristic, it's the future now.
That's it, bio-design. Because on the other side, Ford is doing exactly the same thing with the Mustang SN95. We leave those old styling cues behind, the boxy cars, the badass cars. And we end up with cars that are much rounder, much more aerodynamic, much more in the spirit of the 2000s actually, in the end. Well, so, the Chevrolet Camaro exists. We've also had the Pontiac Firebird since the third generation. They're basically cousins, almost identical except for a few minor details. Well, guess what? It's exactly the same with the fourth generation of Camaro and Firebird. Well, it turns out that even though we're dealing with, well, you know, very patriotic Americans and all that, the fourth generation of Mustang and Firebird were actually produced in Canada, in Boisbriand. Oh yes, and by the way, I was telling you about very aerodynamic cars for the fourth generation of Camaro. And well, yes, that's really the case. The designers really went all out to make the most sloped windshield ever seen so far, with a 68-degree angle. That's huge for a windshield. It's very stylish. It makes the car look like a spaceship, among other things. But for the mechanics who work on the car, it's a lot less fun, since it means the engine is half tucked under the dashboard, under the windshield. So, to change your spark plugs, you might need to drop the engine. Is there a way around this?
No, it could be done without it, but...
For the story, I'll put it that way to make it less credible. Well, as for the design, Chevrolet uses, as usual, a lot of low-end plastic entry-level hard plastics. Well, yes, but it reduces the weight a little, it lowers construction costs, design costs, and it allows them to sell a nice car that's always cheaper. And that's really cool, and they really understood that. So, the funny thing about the fourth generation of Camaro is that the doors and the trunk are made from a mix of fiberglass and plastic. Now, said like that, it doesn't sound glamorous. But in reality, it helps protect against small impacts, and it's a deliberate choice. As for the engines, the Camaro gets the 3.1-liter V6 I mentioned earlier, this time boosted to a little over 130 horsepower. Yeah, super fun. And the IROC Z version no longer exists. It was bought out by Dodge, so the Z28 version comes back with the Corvette C4 engine, which still puts out 279 horsepower. That's good, but it doesn't really make me lose my mind over it. No, really? Bust my ass over it. On the other hand, the really cool thing is that in '93, we already had the option of a 6-speed manual gearbox, and that's pretty great for cruising on American highways at 60 miles an hour. You use a lot less fuel than the others.
I'm not sure about fuel consumption, but the T56 gearbox is legendary. Everyone in the States swaps it into everything.
Well, and as for journalists, because yeah, they always have something to say, as you probably noticed. Well, that's kind of their job after all. They say the fourth generation is ugly, that the windshield is too slanted, and that because of that you're too far from the windshield when you drive, so you can't see anything. I can't say, since I've never driven a fourth generation. But I did read a funny criticism. Journalists claim the passenger side interior smells bad. Do you know why, Clayton?
I assume the dashboard is angled toward the driver.
That's not it. Actually, when they released the fourth generation, they hadn't thought about the placement of the catalytic converter. To fit the catalytic converter, they raised the floor by creating a bump around it, so on the passenger side your knees are up to your chin. That's really how the floor looks. It's not a joke. I didn't know that.
That one I didn't know.
It stinks like hell. Despite its flaws, this Camaro will evolve like its big sisters, which means pretty well actually. Of course, the car gets modernized, the car evolves, better cooling, better braking. It's the first time that on a Camaro we have 4 disc brakes across the whole range, even the V6. Well, and as usual, Chevrolet saves the best for last with the 98 facelift. It's true, I think it looks really cool like that. The car is more aggressive, it looks angrier, it looks sportier, and yes, the performance matches the looks. Since they put in the latest Corvette engine, the LS1 now we're talking.
Now this is serious.
And so, the LS1 on paper is rated at 305 horsepower, but in reality, when you put the car on the dyno, it always makes between 330 and 345 horsepower. And that's crazy. It means that now...
That's for sure. You know why? It's like back in the days of the GNX, the Grand National, they downplayed the performance because they didn't want to steal sales from the Corvette.
That's crazy.
You've got the Corvette, it's the star of the whole lineup, and then you release a Camaro that's much cheaper.
That means you can get a Corvette for $21,000.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
And despite decent success, the 4th generation of Camaro faded away little by little until it disappeared in 2002. As a reminder, at the beginning of its run, more than 100,000 units were sold per year, and in 2002, 29,000. Well, yeah, because on one side we had the Mustang, which was still a real pony car, a real muscle car with big engines, very impressive. We had some wild SN95 variants.
Yeah, honestly.
The Cobra R, all that stuff, it's crazy. Meanwhile, the Camaro just got a little bit bigger. It became a GT, sure, a bit powerful, with some presence, but still a bit clumsy compared to the Mustang. So, yeah, that's how it ends. In 2002, they completely shut down the Camaro factory, which was still in Canada, by the way. And well, the more than 3,000 employees were told, thanks, goodbye. And that's the end of the Camaro. We wouldn't hear about it again for a long time. Jumping into the future, it's now 2000 and so it's been 4 years since we've heard anything about the name Camaro. The name doesn't exist anymore really, nothing happened. No ads, no announcements, no photos, nothing. The Camaro was dead. And in 2005, Ford comes out with this thing, the 5th generation Ford Mustang, which really reconnects with the 1st generation Mustang. We're really talking about a neo-retro look, and honestly, it works really well. And even if it hasn't really been publicly admitted, I think it's a little bit because of, or thanks to, this generation of Mustang that at the 2006 Detroit Auto Show, this thing popped up on the Chevrolet stand. This thing is the Camaro concept. So, it's a South Korean designer who drew this masterpiece for us named Sang-Yup Lee. And honestly, wow, it's stunning. The public is unanimous. The car is exceptional. It's kind of the same wow effect as the Mustang a year earlier. We're really talking about a neo-retro car, and this Camaro concept really takes up the codes, well, of the 1st generation Camaro actually. It's repeating itself. And honestly, even if we don't really realize it, Chevrolet has just arrived with a real car that can compete with the Mustang. Because up until now, well, it wasn't really competition. The Camaro had become a huge GT that nobody could sit in. That's not at all the philosophy of the Mustang, of the pony car. That's not the philosophy. But watch out, plot twist. It turns out that in 2006, something happened in the news that completely freaked out the engineers at General Motors. But in a good way. In fact, in 2006, a certain Michael Bay was looking for a distinctive car to play the character of Bumblebee in the movie Transformers. And so, obviously, this guy totally fell in love with the Camaro concept car and told Chevrolet, guys, I want that in my movie. And that's where it gets really interesting, because we all know the movie, we've all seen it, it's crazy. It blew up the box office, making $709 million in revenue. It's just incredible. And so, everyone fell in love with the design of the Camaro, this distinctive car, already personified even though it hasn't even come out yet, yellow with black stripes, it's Bumblebee. It's not even a Camaro, it's Bumblebee. So naturally, all of a sudden, development is going to speed up since GM realizes that there might be some money to be made here. They're well prepared, as they already have a platform ready for the new Camaro. However, be aware, the Commodore chassis is over in Australia at Holden. That might not mean much to you as a good old European, but that's just a gigantic sedan powered by a gigantic V8. For us, it's basically a Laguna 3 with a 2-liter DCI, but the Australians are completely crazy. And so, to cut costs even more but still have a relatively sporty engine, we're simply going to get one from Corvette. We're just going to take the LS from the Corvette, put it in a Commodore chassis, and then put the body of a concept car from the Transformers movie on it, and that'll make the Camaro, and people will be happy. And yes, of course they were happy, damn it. So there you go, it all comes full circle, the new Camaro exists, and it's actually produced in Canada, but this time in Oshawa, Ontario. Orders opened in mid-2008, and the cars arrived at dealerships in 2010. And honestly, yes, the Transformers movie really boosted sales, since it turns out that the yellow rally color, the color from the movie, was the best-selling color at the car's launch. That is, usually guys like black, red, or maybe gray muscle cars, but here, they want a yellow one. And actually, it turns out that this color was so popular, and the movie was so popular, that they decided to make a limited edition, the Transformers edition, which looks exactly like this. So yes, you probably recognize the background. We're at Auto HV if you've been following the videos for a while, and well, yes, we've already come here and done quite a few things. They handle rentals, repairs, and more. Over there, they're just pretending to work. Anyway, yes, Chevrolet, in 2010, on the occasion of the release of this Camaro, brought out the Transformers edition. So, what's different compared to a regular Camaro? Well, we have this rally yellow color, which is characteristic of the movie. Like I said, it was an extremely popular color in 2010. By the way, they made this edition again in 2012. There are a few subtle differences. In fact, this one is the second version of the Transformers edition. So we have the stripes on the hood that go from glossy to a carbon look. We have small Autobot logos on the fenders, rims, headrests, and center console, plus a leather interior with yellow stitching. It looks great. And also the black leather dashboard with yellow stitching. There might be other details I'm not aware of. If you know of any, let me know in the comments. But in any case, I think we're really lucky to have this model on display right behind us because honestly, there really weren't many of them. I think there were barely 1,000 or 1,500 for the first and second editions. So honestly, super cool. And of course, a big thank you to Maui because yes, they're the ones who have their car serviced here. So, as I said, mechanically, we have the LS3 V8 from the Corvette C6, which still puts out 426 horsepower. On the other side is the Mustang with a 4.6-liter engine making 305 horsepower. Later, the facelifted Mustang arrives with an improved engine, and so on. But here just LS3 6.2 liters. Of course, Chevrolet also gives us a V6 3.6 liters, which is certainly much more anecdotal, you know, because here we're talking about a real pony car and the guys, they want a V8 and, of course, but even the V6 still produces 312 horsepower, which is more than the V8 in the competing Mustang. So, despite an incredible reception and an almost perfect mechanical package, yes, I admit it, the Camaro is not without flaws. Customers and journalists say that there's poor visibility when you're in the car, as if the previous generation wanted to keep up its crappy tradition a little bit. Honestly, I think they've been harsh. Sure, there's a long hood and a Corvette engine, but it's fine. I feel comfortable in this car. But anyway, as usual, the criticism is always the same with big American cars. Yes, there are hard plastics everywhere. Yes, okay, it's hard plastic. But guys, it's Bumblebee. But well, the journalists aren't happy. Not happy, not happy, not happy, not happy. Yes, they say the handling of the car is too heavy, too clumsy. Well, yes, guys, it was an Australian sedan. We're totally aware of that. But despite all these criticisms, you quickly realize that here, we're probably dealing with one of the best muscle cars in history so far because the chassis is just phenomenal. We have a proper rear suspension and true innovations on this model. Remember, the Mustang had a solid rear axle like those on trucks and four-wheel drives, which isn't ideal. And above all, we've got an ultra-high performance and ultra-reliable engine. We've got the Corvette engine, so you can see where this is going. Yes, this car was a real success. We had the best automotive product placement in the history of cars, in the history of humanity. I mean, Transformers was some insane advertising, really crazy advertising, and the car itself is just a real achievement. And yes, that was the case. The first year this Camaro was launched, more than 81,000 units were sold, which is really not bad. So yes, it beat the Mustang until production stopped in 2015. Anyway, all that to say, so 2010 launch, 2011 we get a convertible coming out. 2012 we get the ZL1 version coming out, which is the one with a supercharger, a better chassis, bigger brakes, a manual gearbox. It's crazy. It makes 580 horsepower. And in 2013, we have the 1LE package, 1LE making its return on the Camaro. Basically, it's going to be the performance package for the naturally aspirated version with the optimized chassis, big brakes, manual gearbox, etc, etc. But without the supercharger, for those who want to keep it reasonable, with only 426 horsepower, And in 2014, to crown this very successful generation, American Camaro. In short, Chevrolet presents the ultimate edition of its Camaro with the Z28. In fact, at that moment, they wanted to prove that a modern muscle car definitely has its place on a racetrack, a European road course. So, in short, they went all out. We get a body kit, carbon brakes, and then the engine, the 6.2 litre. That's a bit lame, so we're going to put in the 7 litre from the Corvette Z06. So yes, 500 horsepower in a naturally aspirated engine, that's starting to get serious. And by the way, yes, 0 to 100 is under 4 seconds. They even broke the Nürburgring record in 7 minutes 37, and the top speed is almost 300 kilometers per hour. The journalists used to say it was a big clumsy thing, you see, those guys are out of touch, you know? Here we're talking about a Nürburgring time like a Lamborghini Murcielago, a Ferrari 458, or a Porsche 911 GT3. They called it a big clumsy Camaro. Anyway, for this generation, nearly 500,000 units sold, that's really not bad at all for a comeback. And that's how we already get, well, already or finally, to the 6th generation of Camaro. I think the video is already pretty long, and for this model, I'll be pretty brief because there's a lot to say. Sure, but honestly, I think Chevrolet kind of messed up with this last generation. Honestly, with the new generation, journalists can't really say anymore, yeah, it's too heavy, yeah, it's clumsy, yeah, it's crap. No. Goodbye to the Australian platform, hello to the American platform, because now it's based on the Cadillac ATS. So it's much lighter, much more manageable, much more modern, and above all, it's 100 kilos lighter than the previous generation of Camaro. And now, we're starting to get some really modern technologies, like for example, magnetic suspensions on the 1LE version, so the sportiest one. And by the way, speaking of that, yes, Chevrolet is pulling off another masterstroke, you know, that kind of big stunt with the Nürburgring record, especially with the ZL1. And this time, it has a supercharged Corvette V8. And actually, what's pretty funny about the 1LE is that it was so radical that it was banned from being sold in Europe. Well, yeah, just look at the size of the spoiler. Look at the canards on the front bumpers. There you go. It just didn't meet the pedestrian safety standards in Europe at all. So, well, we never got that one, even though it set a record on a track here. So, despite the fact that it has a much sportier soul, that it's lighter, more agile, just better, it went completely unnoticed, and this 6th generation was a commercial failure. Why, you might ask? Well, simply because of its design. Yeah, it's very pretty, I agree with you, but it looks way too much like the 5th generation. And so people didn't understand at all that it was a new Camaro. They just thought it was a facelift with new front lights, and that's it. But it was a new car, nothing to do with the old one. And honestly, for the guy who really wants to drive a muscle car, really drive an American car, let's not forget that there's still competition from the Dodge Challenger and the Ford Mustang. The Ford Mustang, which is starting to get really good in its 6th generation, so it's understandable. Except for the guys who really want to take their American car to the track, well, the 6th generation Camaro doesn't really find its audience. Anyway, after 9 years on the market and more than 400,000 units sold, well, Chevrolet decided to turn off the tap. There are no more Camaros, it's over. And yes, because in Europe, due to the super strict anti-pollution standards, well, sales are getting very complicated. And in the United States, well, it's starting to become exactly the same, unfortunately. Or fortunately, well, it depends on your point of view, like everything else, really. So, as a result, the very last edition of the Camaro will be sold in 2024, and it will be called the Collector's Edition, and it will only be available in matte black. Matte black, which will actually be called Panther Black as a tribute to the very first prototype of the very first Camaro. And honestly, I think that's cool. I think it looks great. For me, these are cars that actually have a soul, you know, and that's respected. Can you feel the soul? Yeah, so should we explain it to them?
Go ahead. So we'll start with the red one.
Yes, so this one is mine. Actually, it's very interesting because originally it was a 5-liter small block with an automatic transmission, except it had been swapped to a 5.7-liter engine of unknown origin, manual transmission, which blew up. So that's why the engine is so far back. There's no more gearbox, there's no more drive shaft. Here's a piece of the drive shaft. First, what does this car mean to me, and what does it represent for the channel? Maybe I should start there. Well, basically, this won't really be what comes after the 505. I'm preparing something else for you, another very big project that's going to be very interesting. And honestly, the 505 is coming along really well, right?
Yes, yeah.
Especially thanks to Clayton. Show him some support. His Instagram is just below. Go give him some support. But basically, this is mainly going to replace the Mustang, which was kind of an impulsive and unplanned purchase. Do I regret the Mustang? Not at all. Do I regret the time spent on the Mustang? Maybe a little bit. See the difference? It's not the same. So for me, the first step would be to start the engine, get the wheels turning. I have some ideas for the gearbox. We'll see whether we import one from the States or use what we have in France. It could be fun to mix up the DNA a bit. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, why not? I'm just waiting for that.
By the way, hi to Melan.
To Eve, his little brother.
Oh yeah, hi Eve.
And to Gege, his buddy too, who's got a second gen as well.
There you go. Brittany, people think it's just alcoholics, but actually...
They're alcoholics who drive Camaros.
Exactly. So yeah, the idea would be to get this car running, and Malin made us this little marvel.
Ah, thank you.
Before selling the car. That's splendid. Honestly, it's not much to fix, so...
But listen, what you're saying, mixing our DNA and all that... Well, sorry, mixing the DNA of vehicles from all countries, that's the hot rod spirit in the end.
That's the hot rod spirit, man. So basically, that's what I want to do. With the Mustang, now I can tell you, I was dreaming of doing a project a bit inspired by Bonneville, inspired by NASCAR. So, I think with the Mustang, I'm just going to finish the restoration, finish getting it running again, sell it, and probably put a little bit of money into this Camaro to make it a little bit in that spirit. It's really important to me. I've had opportunities to sell it. The car was listed on Le Bon Coin several times. I got a lot of messages and I decided to keep these two Camaros. Since 2024, I've been itching to do it, but I managed to keep it a secret, to keep it tucked away. Thanks again to Loris for this place that hosted these cars. So, that's it. That's my idea. That's my project. I'm really happy about it, and I think the hot rod vibe will fit perfectly with the philosophy of this project. And I don't know if you noticed, but this one is a Euro spec. It's registered in France. It's already been driven on our roads. So we have European mirrors, big rectangular ones that are kind of ugly, and most importantly, we have the European taillights which aren't on this one.
So that's for sure. For me, this car came from an American soldier who was stationed in Germany and sold it over there.
Yes, because this one is German. It has German papers, so it's 100% German.
It ended up in Germany, became a wreck, and was then bought by some French people.
Exactly.
So, you notice the difference in the taillights and especially the side mirrors.
The side mirrors look great and are aerodynamic.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, the side mirror that follows the angle of the windshield, that's actually pretty stylish.
I love it. Plus, it's cool. It's a lighter version.
Oh yeah, so, yeah, we need to talk about that. Where's the engine block?
Well, I was sleeping on it.
Here we have a 5.7 liter, as I mentioned. And here, we have the 5 liter available, which isn't seized, by the way. I don't know if I told you, but I tried with a wrench. Yeah, it turns. So, the idea originally with this second Camaro was to sell it and focus only on this one, since I bought both as a package. In the end, this is a car that's turning out to be a bit complicated to sell. And then I thought, our dear friend Clayton has a 3rd gen in the United States. By the way, here's a little photo.
Or video. I have videos. My coworkers pushing the car to get it started since the starter often failed. Videos of me jumping into the T-tops because I used the doors less. Yeah, that's it.
Do you miss having a 3rd gen?
Yeah, honestly.
Well, listen, if you were happy to have a 3rd gen in the States, you have a 3rd gen in France, man. In France.
That's what's beautiful.
So this one is for Clayton. I thought it was a bit of a shame, actually, after thinking about it. So, honestly, I think what's happening is just the best thing that could happen. Clayton helps me a lot with the projects. It saves me from having to pay cash when he helps me with the projects.
That's it. Oh, the rat.
So that's how this video about the Chevrolet Camaro ends, and more specifically about my Chevrolet Camaro. So in this outro, I wanted to thank everyone who took part in this shoot, whether directly or indirectly. Obviously a huge thank you to Maui, who lent me this gorgeous Camaro V8 with an exceptional Corvette engine. I'm really happy I got to try it out. Available for sale, guys, I repeat, and girls too, of course. With that, I'm sending you big hugs. I'll see you very, very soon for a new video. And as for my Camaro, I don't know when it will actually appear on the channel. I still need to finish the 5th generation Mustang first. Of course, I might not show the end of the Mustang restoration on YouTube, but you can always join me on Instagram, Anthony Peria Citron. I'll post as many photos and videos as possible when I'm working on that project, and I think my Camaro will come after the 505. And believe me, the end of the 505, with how motivated Clayton is and how much he's motivating me, it's going to be done before the end of the year. The car will be finished, I promise you. Big hugs to everyone, take care of yourselves, and bye.